So now we're getting into the point that it's like make it or break it for me. Like I really need to not find these tones. Happy video day, guys. So for today's video, we've got another Make Up Your Mind. And if you guys are new to this series, basically what I do in this series is I don't find dupes, but I look through my collection and I try to see if it's worth it for me to purchase a new eyeshadow palette based on the collection I have and seeing if I can find similar tones in my collection. So I always start off the video just by telling you guys that I'm not looking for dupes. I'm looking to see if something is worth it to me to purchase. I don't expect for you guys to have the same eyeshadow palettes as me. However, you guys probably, if you're watching this video, do have a little eyeshadow palette collection started already. And maybe it'd be worth it to you to sit down with me and look through your collections and see if you can find these similar tones in your collection, because I have been doing this video a few times already, and I will tell you guys, I have been able to find a lot of eyeshadow palettes in my collection that look really similar to new releases. So the palettes that we're going to be trying to find today is actually two mini eyeshadow palettes that are releasing from Fenty. This is going to be called their new Snap Shadows. They're actually releasing December 26th on the Sephora website and a bunch of different other places. Each one of them comes with 6 eyeshadows inside of the pans, and they're really, really cute. And there's 8 different versions of this. And let me know below if you guys see this video if you guys want me to do 2 or 3 more, because honestly, I just picked the 2 that I'm eyeing, but there's a lot of other ones that I'm looking at, and I still haven't decided which one I want to pick up yet. And you'll see why in this video. So there's 2 that I'm interested in. The first one is called Cadet, and it looks just like this. And I really like these tones. It also reminded me of an eyeshadow palette that I have in my collection. So I kind of was like, I really like this one. Like, this is probably one of the ones that really caught my attention the most, but because it kind of looks similar to something that I own, I was like, I gotta do a Make Up on Your Mind on that one. And the other one that I was really interested in is called True Neutrals. A very pretty brownish neutral tone eyeshadow palette that is really nice and convenient to have in a mini, but I need to see if I have any of these similar items in my collection, because my collection is growing and I don't need to add more and more and more. And I think you guys know what I'm talking about. We're trying to save money here and not be repetitive with eyeshadow palettes. And if you are on the same boat as me, then I am sure you're going to enjoy this video. So we're going to be swatching and looking through my collection and comparing this to palettes that I currently own to see if it is worth it for me to purchase these 2 palettes. Like I said before, there is 8 different ones, and there is some other ones that I'm eyeing as well. Let's get into it. Right, guys, so let's start off with Cadet. Now, Cadet is this gorgeous color selection, as you guys can see. Now, if you are like me, the first thing that you thought when you saw this palette was Subculture, because this looks so similar to Subculture. However, some people hate the Subculture palette, so this may be a really great thing for some people, and then for some people who actually like Subculture, this is going to be a horrible thing because you might actually own a lot of these shades. I'm on the boat of people who doesn't really mind the Subculture palette. I actually kind of like the Subculture. I have it here. I never decluttered it. I still use it. It is what I created this eye look with. Actually, if you guys purchase this palette from Fenty, you will be able to create a very similar eye look to the one that I have on my eyes right now, because as I was swatching, I was able to find a lot of these colors in 2 different palettes. Basically, 90% of them came out of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, and only one of them actually came out of the Juvias Place Masquerade mini. So I will tell you, all of these Fenty minis are adorable, beautiful, great color selections. However, I do feel like if you guys have a bigger collection of makeup, you may have a lot of these similar tones. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the first one. So this one was the one that really excited me. I will show you guys on the screen right now my swatches swatched on my arm under daylight compared to the swatches that Fenty posted on their website. So these are the comparisons. As you guys can see, I feel like I did a pretty damn good job finding these colors. And for the first time ever, I did mix a few colors from Subculture together to actually create some of the colors that I see here. And that is because when I do play with eyeshadow palettes, I don't always just grab into one tone. Sometimes I'll mix 2 together. So because this palette looks so similar to Subculture, I really wanted to see if I could stick to just Subculture, and I feel like I was able to, considering that 5 of the shades I got out of here. So let's start with the first shade in the Fenty palette called Good Cookie. So now Good Cookie literally looks so similar to me, like I had seen this, and it is the same as Adorn. At the swatches, I do feel like the Fenty one may have a little bit more brown in it, whereas the one that goes in the Anastasia gets a little bit more golden. However, they're very, very, very similar. So I do not think that these are going to make a huge difference on the lids. I really feel like if you have this Adorn shade, you're probably going to think that you have a very, very similar shade to the one that's inside of the Fenty palette. So to me, that one was like, okay, I found you, like you're kind of very similar to me. So then when I moved on, Glamo Camo was very reminiscent to me, and it is Untamed. Now Untamed has almost the same exact tone. It has a little bit of a bluer undershift to it, but it's still in the green family, and I really feel like these two tones are going to be very similar on the lid. I do not think that you're going to be able to see a big difference based off of the swatches. These look very similar. You may not be able to tell a huge difference here. So the next shade in the Fenty palette is the She Salute shade. So She Salute reminded me a lot of Edge, and it is a very similar tone. When I swatched it, they both have a very orangey kind of yellow undertone. I do think maybe the one in the Fenty might go a little bit more mustardy. This one swatches a little bit more yellow orange to me. Just how they both look paired together, I'm like, okay, this shade is just very on point. Like if the tones are a little bit off, it's not going to be, I think, a deal breaker on the lid. To me, this is another tone that I'm like, okay, so I really do have you. So we already have 3 tones that I'm pretty securely saying these are very similar to something that I found in Subculture. So Take Cover was the next color. So the first thing I did to find this color was I went into this color called Roxy, because it's the color that kind of like stood out to me. When I swatched Roxy, I felt like it was too pinky orange. Like it was not this exact tone. But what I decided to do was do something that I would typically do if I wanted to dye down Roxy, is I would grab Dawn, which is right here, and it's more of like a muted brown, like a very light brown. This color and this color mixed together create almost the identical color of Take Cover. So I feel like if you do have this palette, you can create that color. Like it's not a color that is very difficult to create, and you're not going to be able to mix a few colors in here together to get that color. You will be able to get that color. So Take Over, I feel like I basically have that one too, and I'm okay mixing 2 colors together. That's totally cool with me. So the next color is a color that I can't pronounce the name. I don't know if it's Fatigue. It's like that brownish green color. So in order to get that color, I was able to use Subculture one more time, and what I did was I went into the color called Destiny, which is this color right here that is a little bit more of like a hunter green. Now I will tell you, when I swatched this one, I was like, okay, well, I feel like the color in the Fenty goes a little bit more brown. So all I did was jump into a little bit of fudge and add a little bit of fudge to that color. And I got basically that same green, kind of grungy green color that was coming out of the Fenty palette. And I feel like I have that color as well, because those 2 colors mixed together make me a very, very similar tone to the Fenty one. So in reality, guys, for me personally, I feel like 5 of the shades I am able to find in Subculture, and I love Subculture. So I have no problem with it. Now, if you are somebody who hates the Subculture palette, you may want to look into this new Fenty launch, because a lot of the shades are actually in Subculture. So I feel like you might actually love the new Fenty launch. That being said, I don't know Fenty's formula when it comes to eyeshadows, but I'm assuming that they may be pretty decent. So, and Anastasia is pretty damn good, so whatever. Now, the last shade was hard because I was able to find a whitish color inside of Subculture, but you guys, if you guys own Subculture, you know that this whitish shade in here actually shifts to pink. It doesn't give you a stark white. Now, the one that's coming out of the Fenty palette, you can tell that this one is very white. So I was able to jump into my Masquerade mini, and I grabbed this color right here called Giza. So this color right here gives me that stark white metallic finish that I feel like you're going to be able to get in the Fenty palette. So I will tell you too, if you have Subculture, but you don't have the Masquerade mini and you're saying, well, I really like that last shade, that shifting white kind of highlighty shade, if you have a highlighter, this may be a very similar shade to any highlighter that you may have that has a little bit more of a white undertone to it. So to me, that shade is not like a defining factor to purchase this palette, because you may actually own it in highlighters or in other palettes. Usually this is like a common shade. Now, I will tell you that I love the entire color selection of this new Fenty palette in Cadet. I think it's beautiful. I really, really, really like it. But as you guys saw, I don't need this one. Like straight away, I was considering purchasing this palette because usually when I look at things, I'm like, okay, well, that's the colors that I like. Ooh, I love those. And this palette did that to me. And now after looking, I'm like, okay, but you don't need it, Christina. You don't need it. You have like every single one of those shades in Subculture and just one of them in the Masquerade Mini, or you could just use a highlight. So I feel like for sure Cadet is a no-go for me. I have made up my mind on that one and said, no, 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 you don't need it. Because I did this one pretty quickly because I found a lot of them in the Subculture, I decided to move on to my number 2 choice, which was another one that I was looking at and I really think is very pretty. And that one is called the True Neutrals. Now, the reason that I thought this one was pretty is because I feel like every once in a while it's really nice to just have a neutral palette. Like neutral palettes to me are just very useful, you know? But of course I am trying to save money and not purchase redundant things. So even though the combination of colors looks really nice together and it's really convenient to have, I need to see in my collection what I have and just see if I already have these things. I decided to find this one as well and see if I could. And I will tell you guys that I feel like this palette here was strongly referenced to Natasha Denona's palettes because I found so many of them in the Metropolis palette that look very similar to the Fenty palette. Now, that being said, this is a neutral palette, so I mean, there's only so many neutral colors. So I was able to find these shades in 3 of the Natasha Denona palettes that I own. I was able to find 1 shade in the Safari palette. I found 1 shade in the Sunrise palette. And I found all the rest of the shades in the Metropolis palette. So the Metropolis palette gave me the majority of the shades, but I was able to find 2 of the shades in the Sunrise and in the Safari. But those 2 shades are just very distinct. Like I can see why I wasn't able to find them in Metropolis. They just didn't match with Metropolis. But either way, we're gonna get into this True Neutrals right now. I'll show you guys my results. So these are my swatches and the Fenty Beauty swatches, so you guys can see how I was able to find similar tones in my collection. And I will tell you, I think I did a decent job on this one too. First color that I can't pronounce the name is called something with an A, and it's a dark brown color. So that color right there, I could find a very similar color inside of this palette right here from Natasha Denona, the Metropolis palette. And it is this one right here called Antique. Now, I do think that the one that's actually in the Fenty palette may go a little deeper than this color. However, when I was kind of like swatching it, I kept on feeling like, damn, this is such a similar tone. I do think that there is a chance that the Fenty one might go deeper than this tone, but not a tone that I feel like I can't find, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like there could be another palette that could have an even deeper tone, or I can mix that one in a little bit with maybe a darker brown and kind of create a similar tone to that one. So it's not unique enough for me to really like jump at. But now the next color I was actually excited for because this is one of the ones that I thought was really unique. When I saw these colors, I kind of looked at this palette and I said, damn, I feel like I'm going to find a lot of them in here. And I do feel like that was the case. The next color I found in the color Helena. This color has that same undertone that I'm seeing in the Fenty one. And when I swatched it, I kind of just went, like, yeah, that looks very, very on point. Like, I feel like once I'm going to put this on my lid, somebody is not going to be able to tell the difference between the two. So it's not enough for me to say, yes, I need you. So the next one was another one that I really looked at and said, this is a pretty tone. Now I like you. Remember, all these colors work really nice together. So when I see them, I'm like, ooh, that's really pretty. That can look really nice with the other colors. And it's called Come In and Get It. It's a tone that I had seen very similar just recently, and it was also Metropolis, and it's this color right here called Chrism. I feel like out of all the tones I found, I feel like this is one of the ones that I'm like, okay, this is like really spot on. And if anything, that was one of those tones that was really drawing me in the most on the Fenty one. I really like those brownish orange tones. To me, they're just beautiful, and they really catch my eye. Like, they always catch my eye. So I feel like I have that in Metropolis pretty down packed. So that's a tone that I feel like, okay, I have that one as well. So I already have 3 of them that I'm like, ugh. So now we're getting into the point that it's like make it or break it for me. Like, I really need to not find these tones. And the next one was one that got me pretty excited because I really think this is a pretty color. It's called Simma Down. And I really thought I wasn't going to find this one until I opened up Sunrise and I found it. And I feel like the one I found in the color Laurel, Laurel just has that same pink undertone. I don't think that these are going to look too different. And the Natasha Denona formula is just so delicious. Like, if I like this color, I'm probably going to grab it in Natasha Denona just because I love her formula so much. And I own this palette, and this is a great palette. So to me, to buy the Fenty one for a tone like that I love in Natasha Denona, wasn't worth it. So let's keep going. The next color would be Velvet Cuffs. And this is another tone that I thought was really pretty. Like in the Fenty one, I was like, that's really gorgeous. And I found it inside of Metropolis again, inside of the color Queen. Now this tone, almost spot on. Like, I really don't think there's going to be a huge difference on the lid with these two colors. Even if the undertone is slightly different, I don't think you're going to be able to tell whatsoever. Nobody's going to come up to you and say, that's a different tone. Like, it's like one of those type of colors to me. So Velvet Cuffs, I have it. Finally, Nookie Rookie was the last tone, and I couldn't find those in Metropolis. I couldn't find it inside of Sunrise. Makes sense. They wouldn't really jive with those two palettes. But I also own another Natasha Denona, and that is Safari. I was able to kind of compare it to this color called Malaya on the top. It is that same kind of like pinky whitish undertoned matte that is just so beautiful, and I love Safari. So I think you guys noticed that I think I found all of these tones in palettes that I adore. I love all of these Natasha Denona palettes so much. They are palettes that I like literally love. So that basically makes me say, hey, you just found every single one of those tones. You already know the color story that Fenty came up with, and I kind of like their color story. Can I use their color story with the palettes that I own to create similar looks? Yeah, I can. So in my opinion, I don't really need either one of these. So I've made up my mind to not purchase either one of these two mini palettes from Fenty. They are both very beautiful, and if you guys don't have the palettes that I have shown you, or you don't have palettes in your collection that look similar to these tones, then maybe these two palettes would be worth it for you, but for me right now, not worth it. However, Fenty came out with 8, and there's a few other ones that I'm eyeing, and I don't know, maybe I'll do some more make up your minds on those. So I wasn't able to find one to pick up, so I still want to buy one, so I wouldn't mind doing a part 2 to this video and looking at some of the other ones that released to see if I can actually find one that I can safely pick up and feel like, hey, you don't own this, or it is so awesome and you need it, and yeah. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Don't forget, leave me those comments below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.